You learned early how to stay still on the inside. Not frozen exactly, more like gently folded inward, as if your attention learned to turn itself down, the way a dimmer softens a room. In childhood, there was a moment, not dramatic, not obvious, when noticing became safer than expressing. You watched moods before you felt your own. You listened for tone shifts, pauses, the emotional weather of a room. Without realizing it, your nervous system learned that awareness was protection.
This is how a child disappears. Not by leaving, but by becoming exceptionally present to everything except their own needs. Maybe no one told you to be quiet. Maybe no one explicitly ignored you. But there was a sense that taking up space required calculation, that speaking carried weight, that emotions were easier to manage when they stayed unspoken. So you adapted, and it was an intelligent adaptation.
Your mind became observational. You noticed patterns. You tracked contradictions. You sensed what people meant more than what they said. Not because you were weak, but because you were human. And humans survive by reading the environment when safety feels uncertain. Psychology has a word for this kind of early tuning: hypervigilance. It doesn't mean fear. It means awareness sharpened just enough to prevent trouble. A nervous system that learned to stay slightly ahead of what might happen next. As a child, this made you seem mature, thoughtful, easy, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who understood without being told. And quietly, another process took place. You learned that observation could replace participation, that being aware could feel almost like being involved, that watching emotions, yours and others, was safer than fully inhabiting them. This is where the quiet observer is born. As you grew older, this adaptation didn't disappear, it refined itself. In adulthood, you might notice that you still enter rooms by reading them. You sense dynamics before conversations start. You know when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. Silence feels familiar. Solitude feels regulated. Attachment theory would describe this as a form of emotional self-reliance, not avoidance exactly, more like careful distance. Connection is wanted, but only when it feels contained, predictable, safe enough not to overwhelm the nervous system. You may notice that emotions arrive in you slightly delayed, that understanding often comes before feeling, that you can explain what's happening inside you with clarity, but inhabiting it fully feels less accessible. What saved you then now imprisons you, because the observer is excellent at understanding life, but less practiced at being inside it.
You might find yourself in conversations where others share intensely and you hold space with ease, empathy, precision. Yet when attention turns toward you, words thin out, not because there's nothing there, but because being seen still feels like exposure. The quiet observer doesn't lack depth, quite the opposite. Depth is where you live.
But depth without expression can become isolation. Not the dramatic kind, the subtle kind that looks like independence from the outside. Your nervous system learned regulation through distance, through watching instead of entering, through thinking instead of feeling. This wasn't a flaw, it was a survival strategy. Children adapt to what they are given, not what they are missing. If emotional attunement was inconsistent, you became your own regulator. If feelings felt inconvenient to others, you learned to metabolize them internally. This is sometimes called parentification, not always in tasks, but in emotional responsibility. You learned to manage yourself early, to be low maintenance, to not require much. And so adulthood can feel strangely quiet, not empty, just internally contained. You may notice that you enjoy observing people more than participating in groups, that you see nuances others miss,
that your mind works in layers, connections, meanings. You may also notice a subtle distance between understanding and embodiment, between insight and relief. The observer understands why they feel the way they do, but understanding alone doesn't always soften the nervous system. And still, there is meaning here, because the quiet observer carries a rare kind of intelligence, the intelligence of attunement, of restraint, of depth without display. You were never meant to be loud. You were meant to be precise. Not everything needs expression to be real. Not every inner life needs an audience.
And yet, even the observer is allowed to rest, to step out of constant awareness, to exist without monitoring. Perhaps the soft realization is this: the part of you that learned to watch so carefully was trying to keep you safe. It succeeded. And now it doesn't need to work as hard. Nothing needs to change immediately. Nothing needs to be fixed.
Just understood. And sometimes understanding is the first quiet form of release.